Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to the English Globe, a channel created especially for people who want to improve their English by listening to long, clear, and meaningful conversations. And today we are very happy that you are here with us because we will talk about an important modern topic that connects language learning with real life, which is how to start a successful business in 2026. And this discussion is designed to help you understand not only business ideas, but also how English is used naturally to explain complex topics in a calm and structured way.
Before we go deeper into today's topic, dear listeners, we kindly ask you to support this educational channel by liking this video and subscribing to the English Globe, because your support helps us continue creating high-quality English learning content. And please also write in the comments where you are listening from and share your opinion about today's topic, since reading your thoughts allows us to understand our global audience better and makes this learning experience more interactive and meaningful for everyone.
Now let us begin by understanding why this topic is so important in 2026. Because the world of business has changed dramatically due to technology, global competition, and new ways of working, which means that many old ideas about success are no longer realistic. And people who want to start a business today must first learn how to think differently, act responsibly, and understand that success is not something that happens quickly, but something that grows slowly through learning, patience, and continuous improvement.
Many people still believe that business success means fast money or instant popularity, but in reality, modern success is more about solving real problems, building trust with customers, and creating something useful for society, which is why understanding this new definition of success is very important for beginners, especially for English learners who may see confusing information online and need clear explanations that help them separate realistic ideas from unrealistic expectations.
In 2026, a successful business is often flexible, ethical, and sustainable, which means it can adapt to change, respect people, and survive difficult situations without causing harm. And this is why we want our listeners to focus first on mindset rather than money. Because when your thinking is realistic and responsible, your decisions become better, your stress becomes lower, and your chances of long-term progress become much stronger in a competitive global environment.
From an English learning point of view, this section is very useful because you are listening to long sentences that explain ideas step by step. And while listening, you can notice how words like success, mindset, long-term, sustainable, and realistic are used naturally, which helps you improve your vocabulary, listening patience, and overall confidence when understanding English discussions about business, education, and modern life topics.
Another important reason why this topic matters is that even if you never start a business, understanding how modern businesses work helps you become a smarter worker, a better decision maker, and a more informed person, because business thinking teaches planning, responsibility, and problem-solving skills that are useful in many areas of life, especially in a world where economic changes affect almost everyone in different ways.
As we continue this podcast, we encourage you to listen carefully, not only for information, but also for language patterns, because learning English through long educational conversations helps your brain adapt naturally. And this is why the English Globe focuses on calm explanations, clear pronunciation, and realistic topics, so you can improve your English step by step while also gaining useful knowledge that supports your personal and professional growth.
When we talk about choosing the right business idea for the 2026 market, the first and most important principle to understand is that successful businesses usually begin by solving real problems that people experience in their daily lives, rather than copying popular trends from social media or blindly following what seems exciting at the moment, because trends often disappear quickly, while real problems continue to exist and create stable demand, which makes problem-solving a much more logical and sustainable foundation for anyone who wants to start a business in a realistic and responsible way.
Many learners might be thinking, how can I find a real problem if I am not an expert or a business professional? And this is a very natural question, because real problems do not always look big or dramatic, but they often appear in simple situations like slow services, confusing systems, expensive products, or lack of access. And when you observe your own life carefully, you may notice small frustrations that many people share, which can later become valuable business ideas when approached thoughtfully.
This is exactly why logical thinking is more important than excitement, because instead of asking what business is popular right now, a better question is what problem exists and who is affected by it. Since a business idea becomes stronger when it clearly identifies a customer, understands their situation, and offers a solution that saves time, reduces stress, or improves quality of life. And this logical approach helps avoid risky speculation that depends on luck rather than understanding.
To make this idea clearer for English learners, we can think about a simple daily life example, such as people struggling to learn new skills online because content is confusing or too advanced, and in this case, the demand already exists. The customers are clear, and the value comes from simplifying information, which shows that you do not need to invent something completely new, but instead improve what already exists by understanding people's needs better.
Another key part of choosing the right business idea is understanding your own skills and interests honestly, because a business that matches your abilities is easier to manage and improve over time, while a business that is completely outside your skills often leads to stress and mistakes. So instead of copying others, it is more logical to ask what you can do well, what you are willing to learn, and how those skills can be connected to a real problem in the market.
Some listeners may wonder whether skills must be professional or advanced, but in reality, skills can be simple and practical, such as communication, organization, teaching, or creativity. And when these skills are combined with consistent learning, they become valuable, which is why it is important for learners to understand that value is not only created by technology or money, but also by human ability and effort used in the right direction.
In the 2026 market, relevance is also extremely important, because even a good idea can fail if it does not match current needs or conditions. And this is why business thinking should always include observation of changes in technology, work habits, and consumer behavior, not to predict the future perfectly, but to make informed decisions based on visible facts rather than emotional opinions or unrealistic expectations.
This is a good moment to explain the difference between opinion and fact, because many people say, "I think this idea will work," without checking whether people actually want it. But facts come from evidence such as customer feedback, public discussions, or existing demand. And for English learners, understanding this difference helps not only in business thinking, but also in language use, since facts are supported by information while opinions are personal beliefs.
When choosing a business idea, avoiding risky speculation is very important, especially in a world where online content often promotes fast success stories. Because speculation means guessing without understanding, while logical business thinking means testing ideas slowly, learning from small feedback, and improving step by step, which reduces risk and builds confidence over time without making promises or expecting unrealistic results.
To put this into simple language, we can say that a strong business idea usually answers three basic questions, which are: who is the customer? What problem does the customer have? And how does this solution create value? And when learners repeat these questions while thinking in English, they also practice clear sentence structure and logical explanation, which improves both business understanding and language confidence.
Global examples help us understand this idea better, because whether someone lives in a large city or a small town, people everywhere want convenience, clarity, and reliability, which means that business ideas do not need to be complex, but they must be useful. And this usefulness is what creates demand, builds trust, and allows a business to grow naturally without depending on hype or aggressive promotion.
From an English learning perspective, This section introduces important vocabulary such as demand, skills, solution, value, and customer. And by hearing these words used repeatedly in different sentences, learners can understand their meaning more deeply because repetition in new contexts helps the brain connect words with real ideas rather than memorizing definitions without understanding.
Conditional thinking is also very useful here because we often say things like, if a problem exists, then a solution has value, or if customers are satisfied, then trust increases, and these conditional sentences are common in business English, which makes this topic especially helpful for learners who want to improve both logical reasoning and language structure at the same time.
As we move forward in this podcast, we want listeners to remember that choosing the right business idea in 2026 is not about being lucky or following others, but about thinking carefully, observing real life, understanding people, and connecting skills with needs. And by listening to these explanations in English, you are not only learning about business, but also training your mind to think clearly and express ideas more confidently in a global language.
When we use the term market research, many beginners feel nervous because they imagine complex charts, expensive tools, or professional experts. But in simple terms, market research only means trying to understand people better by observing what they need, how they behave, and why they make certain choices. And this process can begin in very basic ways, such as paying attention to conversations, reading comments, noticing common complaints, and listening carefully to what people say about products or services in everyday life.
To make this even easier for English learners, we can say that market research is like asking quiet questions without always speaking, because instead of guessing what people want, you watch how they act, what they search for, and what problems they repeat again and again. And this way of learning removes fear because it shows that research is not about being perfect, but about being curious and open to understanding others more deeply.
A very important point for beginners in 2026 is that understanding customers does not require advanced technology or paid systems, because valuable information already exists in public spaces such as reviews, forums, social media discussions, news articles, and everyday conversations. And when you read and listen carefully, patterns slowly appear, which helps you understand audience behavior without spending money or using complicated tools.
Many learners make the mistake of thinking that research means asking people directly to buy something or pushing ideas too early. But real research is more patient because it focuses on listening instead of selling. And when you change your mindset from convincing people to understanding them, the process becomes calmer, more ethical, and also much easier to manage for someone who is just starting their learning journey.
Ethical behavior is very important in market research, which means using only public information, respecting privacy, and avoiding manipulation, because trust is the foundation of any long-term business. And when research is done honestly, it helps both the business owner and the customer, since decisions are based on real needs rather than pressure, exaggeration, or hidden intentions that can damage reputation over time.
For English learners, this is also a good place to notice how explanation sentences work, because you often hear phrases like information is collected, feedback is observed, or behavior is analyzed. And these passive structures are common in educational English, which makes this section very useful for practicing how ideas are explained clearly without focusing too much on who is doing the action.
Step by step, market research can be understood as a simple process where first you observe, then you read, and finally you listen, because observation shows what people do, reading shows what people think, and listening shows what people feel. And when these three elements are combined, a clearer picture of the audience appears, which allows beginners to make informed decisions without relying on luck or assumptions.
Some listeners may feel afraid of making mistakes while researching, but mistakes are actually part of learning. Because misunderstanding one comment or interpreting behavior incorrectly teaches you to look again more carefully. And this is why curiosity is more important than fear, since curious learners ask better questions, pay closer attention, and slowly improve their understanding through repeated exposure.
In 2026, customer behavior changes quickly, which means research is not something done once and forgotten, but something that continues over time. And this idea helps beginners understand that research is a habit, not a task. Because when you regularly observe feedback and reactions, you stay connected to reality and avoid building ideas based only on personal opinions or outdated information.
This is also a good moment to highlight common mistakes learners make, such as trusting only one source, believing very strong opinions without evidence, or ignoring negative feedback, because balanced research requires looking at different perspectives. And for English learners, this practice also improves critical thinking and helps them understand that language is often used differently when people are emotional, satisfied, or frustrated.
Another important concept is feedback, which simply means responses from people, and feedback can be positive or negative. But both types are valuable, because positive feedback shows what works, while negative feedback shows what needs improvement. And when beginners learn to see feedback as information instead of personal attack, they develop stronger decision-making skills and emotional balance.
From a language learning angle, listening for detail is very important here, because when people share feedback, they often include small details that reveal bigger problems or needs. And by training yourself to listen carefully to tone, word choice, and repeated phrases, you improve both your English listening ability and your understanding of customer behavior at the same time.
Market research made simple is really about staying close to people and reality, because businesses that lose connection with real audiences often fail, while businesses that continue listening and learning remain relevant. And this principle applies everywhere in the world, regardless of culture or location, which makes it a global and practical skill for all learners.
As we continue this podcast, we want listeners to remember that research is not something to fear or avoid, but something to practice slowly and ethically. Because when you observe carefully, read thoughtfully, and listen patiently, you gain knowledge that supports better ideas, clearer communication, and stronger confidence, both in business thinking and in your journey of learning English through real-life topics.
When people hear the phrase business plan, many beginners imagine a very long and difficult document filled with numbers, predictions, and professional language. But in reality, a business plan in 2026 is simply a clear written explanation of what you want to do, why you want to do it, who it is for, and how you plan to move forward step by step, which means its real purpose is not to impress others or predict the future perfectly, but to guide your own thinking in a calm and organized way.
This explanation is very important for learners who already feel overwhelmed, because many people think that if they cannot write a perfect plan, they should not even start. But the truth is that a simple and honest plan is much more useful than a complex one. And from an English learning point of view, this is also helpful because it shows that clear ideas expressed in simple grammar are often stronger than complicated sentences that are difficult to understand.
In 2026, flexibility is one of the most important qualities of a working business plan because markets change, customer behavior changes, and technology changes, which means a plan should be treated like a living document that can be adjusted when new information appears, rather than a fixed promise that must be followed, even when conditions clearly move in a different direction.
Many learners feel fear because they believe planning means making big decisions that cannot be changed later. But planning actually reduces fear because it allows you to think ahead in a safe way. And when ideas are written down, they become clearer, which helps you see what is realistic, what needs more thought, and what can be improved slowly without pressure.
To break a business plan into clear parts, we can start by explaining it as a simple structure, where one part explains the problem you want to solve, another part explains your solution, another part describes who your customer is, and another part shows how you will deliver value, and this structure helps beginners focus on logic instead of worrying about advanced business language.
For English learners, this structure is also useful because it introduces planning vocabulary naturally, such as goal, strategy, and structure. And when these words are used repeatedly in different sentences, learners begin to understand their meaning through context, which is much more effective than memorizing definitions without seeing how the words are used in real explanations.
One important thing to remember is that a business plan should guide decisions, not predict results, because prediction often creates stress and unrealistic expectations, while guidance creates direction and clarity. And this is why we avoid complex financial claims, since numbers can change easily, and beginners do not need detailed forecasts to understand whether an idea is meaningful or not.
This is very reassuring for people who are new to business thinking, because many learners worry that they are not good with numbers. But planning is not only about money. It is about understanding steps, priorities, and limits. And even a simple written plan can help someone avoid confusion and make better choices with less emotional pressure.
In educational content, especially for English learners, it is important to explain that planning helps you ask better questions, such as what is my main goal, what small steps can move me closer to it, and what problems might appear along the way, because these questions create awareness and prepare you mentally for challenges instead of surprising you later.
From a language learning angle, this section also helps you practice sequencing language, because when we explain plans, we naturally organize ideas in order. Using expressions that show progression and clarity and listening to long explanations trains your brain to follow structure, which is an important skill not only in business, but also in academic and professional English.
Another important point is realism, because a business plan should reflect your real situation, including your time, skills, and energy. And when plans are too ambitious or copied from others, they often fail quickly, while realistic plans grow slowly but remain stable, especially when they are reviewed and adjusted regularly.
Many beginners make the mistake of comparing their plans to large companies or successful entrepreneurs. But comparison often creates unnecessary stress, and it is more helpful to focus on personal progress, because a plan that fits your life and abilities is far more valuable than a perfect-looking plan that you cannot follow consistently.
In 2026, simplicity is a strength, because clear thinking leads to clear action, and when a plan is simple, it is easier to explain to others, easier to review, and easier to improve, which means it supports learning rather than creating confusion, especially for those who are balancing business goals with language learning at the same time.
This is also why restating ideas in simple grammar is powerful, because when learners can explain their plan in basic English, it shows real understanding, and this practice helps build confidence, since being able to describe your ideas clearly is more important than using advanced vocabulary without control.
A business plan that actually works is one that helps you think clearly today and adjust calmly tomorrow, because it does not lock you into rigid promises, but instead provides a direction that can change as you learn more about your customers, your market, and yourself, which is a very healthy approach to both business and personal development.
As English learners, listening to this kind of long-form explanation also improves your ability to follow ideas over time, because you are not only hearing individual sentences, but also understanding how they connect to form a complete picture, which is exactly how real conversations and professional discussions work in English.
So as we continue this podcast, remember that planning is not about control, it is about clarity. And when you use a business plan as a guide instead of a prediction, you reduce fear, increase focus, and create a stronger foundation for learning, growth, and responsible decision-making in a changing world.
And finally, we want to encourage you to see planning as a learning tool, not a test, because every plan improves with experience, feedback, and reflection. And by listening, thinking, and practicing English through these explanations, you are already taking an important step toward clearer communication and more confident thinking in both business and everyday life.
When we talk about starting a business in 2026, one of the most important foundations is understanding legality and ethics, because a business is not only an activity to earn income, but also a responsibility towards society, customers, and the wider community, which means that long-term success depends not on shortcuts or clever tricks, but on following laws, respecting rules, and acting in ways that are fair, honest, and transparent for everyone involved.
Many learners may feel that legal and ethical topics sound complicated or frightening. But in simple terms, being legal means following the rules that exist to protect people, and being ethical means doing the right thing even when no one is watching. And when these two ideas work together, they create trust, which is one of the most valuable elements any business can have, especially in a world where people are very careful about who they support and why.
It is important to understand that ethical business matters in the long term because reputation grows slowly but can be damaged very quickly, and once trust is lost, it is extremely difficult to rebuild, which is why responsible businesses focus on honesty, clear communication, and respect, instead of trying to gain short-term benefits that may cause harm or confusion later on.
From a learner's perspective, trust is not only a business word but also a human value. Because when customers trust a business, they feel safe, respected, and understood. And this feeling encourages long-term relationships rather than one-time transactions, which shows that ethical behavior creates value beyond money and supports stability over time.
In this section, it is very important to clarify that we are not giving legal instructions or country-specific rules, because laws differ around the world. But there are general global principles that apply almost everywhere, such as respecting agreements, protecting personal information, being honest in communication, and avoiding harm. And these principles help businesses operate responsibly, regardless of location.
This global approach is helpful for English learners because it focuses on universal ideas rather than complex legal details. And by understanding these shared principles, learners can think ethically in any environment, whether they are working locally or interacting with people from different cultures and backgrounds.
Responsibility in business also means understanding how decisions affect others, because every choice, even a small one, can influence customers, employees, or the community. And when business owners think carefully about consequences, they reduce risk, avoid conflict, and build a positive image that supports sustainable growth.
Sometimes responsibility feels abstract, but it can be explained simply as caring about the impact of your actions. Because when you ask yourself whether something is fair, honest, or respectful, you are already practicing ethical thinking, and this habit becomes stronger with time and reflection.
In 2026, customers are more informed and more connected than ever before, which means unethical behavior is discovered quickly, shared widely, and remembered for a long time. And this reality makes ethical business not just a moral choice, but also a practical one that protects the future of any business idea.
This is a good moment for English learners to notice how abstract concepts are explained, because words like legal, ethical, responsibility, and trust are often used in formal discussions, and hearing them repeated in clear sentences helps learners understand how these ideas are communicated calmly and professionally in English.
Another important point is respect, because respecting laws shows respect for society. Respecting customers shows respect for human dignity. And respecting communities shows awareness that businesses exist within a larger system, not in isolation. And when respect is present, cooperation becomes easier and conflicts become less frequent.
Many beginners worry that ethical behavior might slow them down, but in reality, it often saves time and energy. Because clear rules, honest communication, and fair treatment reduce misunderstandings and problems, which allows people to focus on improvement rather than damage control.
Keeping content universally applicable also means focusing on values rather than technical details, because values guide behavior even when situations change, and a business that is built on strong values can adapt to new rules, new markets, and new challenges without losing its core identity.
From a language learning point of view, listening to this formal tone helps learners become comfortable with serious discussions, because not all English conversations are casual, and understanding formal explanations is an important skill for education, work, and global communication.
Ethical thinking also supports better decision-making, because when you consider fairness and responsibility, you naturally avoid extreme or risky choices, and this balanced approach leads to steadier progress, which is especially important for beginners who are still learning and growing.
We encourage learners to see ethics not as a limitation, but as a guide, because when you know what you should not do, it becomes clearer what you should do, and this clarity reduces stress and increases confidence over time.
In the long run, businesses that respect laws, people, and communities create positive influence beyond profit, because they contribute to stability, cooperation, and trust, which benefits not only the business owner, but also customers and society as a whole.
As English learners, reflecting on these ideas also helps you practice expressing abstract thoughts, because talking about responsibility and trust requires clear thinking and careful language, which strengthens both your communication skills and your ethical awareness.
So as we move forward, remember that legality and ethics are not optional extras, but essential foundations, because when a business is built responsibly, it stands stronger against challenges and earns respect naturally over time.
And finally, we invite you to think ethically not only as future business owners, but also as global citizens, because when responsibility guides your actions, you build trust, protect your reputation, and contribute positively to the world, while also improving your ability to understand and use English in meaningful and thoughtful conversations.
When we talk about technology and artificial intelligence in 2026, it is very important to understand from the beginning that technology is not meant to replace human thinking, creativity, or responsibility, but instead, it exists to support small businesses by making daily tasks easier, faster, and more organized, which allows business owners to focus more on learning, improving quality, and serving customers better rather than spending all their time on repetitive or confusing work.
Many learners feel confused or even afraid when they hear words like automation or artificial intelligence, because they imagine machines taking control of everything. But in simple English, technology is just a set of tools that help people work more efficiently. And the key point is that humans always decide how these tools are used, which means balance is necessary so that technology supports human goals instead of replacing human judgment.
In small businesses, technology often supports basic activities such as communication, organization, learning, and customer interaction, and when used responsibly, it can reduce mistakes, save time, and improve clarity. But problems appear when people believe exaggerated claims that technology will automatically create success without effort, because no tool can replace understanding, patience, or ethical decision-making.
So if I understand correctly, Adam, the problem is not technology itself, but the way people expect too much from it without learning how it works or thinking carefully about its limits, which is why beginners should first focus on learning and understanding rather than trying to automate everything too quickly.
Exactly. Because responsible use of AI tools means knowing what they can do and what they cannot do, since AI can help generate ideas, organize information, or improve efficiency, but it cannot fully understand human values, emotions, or complex social situations, which is why businesses that depend only on automation often lose authenticity, trust, and human connection over time.
For English learners, it may help to think about AI as a helpful assistant rather than a decision maker, because an assistant supports your work but does not replace your responsibility, and this way of thinking makes the topic less technical and more realistic, especially for people who are still building confidence in both language and business understanding.
In 2026, efficiency is one of the main reasons businesses use technology, because efficient systems help reduce wasted time and energy. But efficiency should never be confused with speed alone, since doing things quickly without understanding can create mistakes, while doing things efficiently means doing them clearly, responsibly, and with awareness of long-term consequences.
This is a good example of cause and effect language, because when technology is used carefully, efficiency increases. But when it is used without understanding, confusion and dependency often appear. And listening to these explanations helps learners notice how English connects actions with results in longer and more complex sentences.
Another important point is avoiding automation myths, because many online messages suggest that businesses can run themselves with no human effort. But in reality, automation always requires setup, monitoring, correction, and ethical control, which means humans remain responsible for outcomes even when tools are involved.
Many beginners might ask whether they need advanced technical skills to use modern tools, but in most cases, basic digital literacy and willingness to learn are enough, because modern technology is designed to be user-friendly, and learning step by step is more effective than trying to master everything at once.
From an educational point of view, we should remember that technology also supports learning, because online platforms, digital tools, and AI-based systems can help people improve skills, practice languages, and access information globally, which creates opportunities that were not available before, especially for learners who do not have access to traditional education systems.
This balance between humans and tools is very important, because when people trust tools too much, they stop thinking critically. But when they reject tools completely, they miss opportunities for improvement, which shows that responsible business thinking requires both openness and caution at the same time.
In small businesses, technology should always serve a clear purpose, such as improving communication, organizing tasks, or supporting customer experience. And when a tool does not clearly add value, it should be questioned rather than accepted simply because it is new or popular.
For English learners, hearing technical ideas explained in simple language is very helpful, because it shows that complex topics do not always require complex grammar, and understanding these explanations builds confidence in listening to discussions about modern business, technology, and global trends.
Another cause and effect relationship to notice is that when people rely only on tools without learning, their skills remain weak. But when tools are used as learning supports, skills grow stronger over time, which leads to independence instead of dependency.
This is also why responsible AI use is connected to ethics, because tools reflect the intentions of the people who use them. And when intentions are clear and ethical, technology becomes a positive force rather than a harmful one.
In 2026, the most successful businesses are often those that combine human understanding with technological support, because this combination allows flexibility, creativity, and efficiency to exist together instead of competing against each other.
As listeners, you can also use this topic to practice listening for long sentences, because these explanations require attention and patience, and training your ears to follow complex ideas in English will help you understand real conversations, lectures, and professional discussions more easily.
So the key message of this section is that technology and AI are powerful tools, but they are not magic solutions. And when they are used responsibly, ethically, and with continuous learning, they support small businesses in meaningful ways without removing the human role that remains essential in every successful business.
And finally, we encourage learners to stay curious but careful, because asking questions, learning slowly, and thinking critically will help you use technology wisely, improve your efficiency, and strengthen both your business understanding and your English listening skills at the same time.
When we talk about marketing in a digital world, it is very important to understand that marketing is not about manipulating people or pushing them to buy something quickly, but instead, It is about clear and honest communication, where a business explains who it is, what it offers, and why it may be useful. Because in 2026, people are surrounded by information every day, and they naturally trust brands that speak clearly, calmly, and respectfully without making unrealistic promises or creating pressure.
Many English learners hear the word marketing and immediately think about advertising or persuasion. But in simple daily language, marketing is just the way a business talks to people, listens to them, and shares its message, which means that even a small business is already doing marketing when it explains its idea honestly, answers questions politely, and communicates in a way that feels human instead of aggressive or confusing.
Honest communication with customers is especially important today because digital platforms allow people to share their experiences very easily, and when messages are unclear or misleading, trust is lost quickly, while clear communication builds confidence over time, which shows that marketing success comes from consistency and truth rather than short-term attention or dramatic language designed only to attract clicks.
From a storytelling point of view, people understand messages better when they feel natural and relatable, which means that instead of using complex slogans, businesses can simply explain why they exist, what problem they try to solve, and how they want to help. Because stories connect ideas with real situations, and this approach makes communication clearer for both customers and English learners listening carefully.
Building trust through clear messaging also means choosing words carefully, because every message sends a signal about values and intentions, and when a brand uses respectful language, realistic explanations, and transparent information, it slowly creates a positive reputation that grows stronger with time, even if growth is slow, because trust is built through repeated honest interactions rather than sudden popularity.
For English learners, this is a good opportunity to notice descriptive sentence structures, because marketing messages often describe ideas, feelings, and purposes. And when you listen closely, you can hear how tone changes meaning, since a calm tone feels supportive, while an aggressive tone feels uncomfortable, which helps learners understand intention, not just vocabulary.
Long-term brand thinking is another key idea, because a brand is not just a logo or a name, but the overall feeling people have when they hear about a business, and this feeling is shaped by communication over months and years, which means that responsible marketing focuses on being reliable and understandable, instead of chasing fast attention that may disappear quickly.
To explain brand in simple words, we can say that a brand is a promise made through actions and communication. And every message either strengthens or weakens that promise, which is why clarity matters so much, because when people understand what to expect, they feel comfortable and respected, and this comfort leads to long-term relationships rather than one-time interactions.
In 2026, digital communication happens across many platforms, but the core principle remains the same everywhere, which is that a business should speak to its audience the way it wants to be treated, with honesty, patience, and respect. And when this principle guides communication, marketing becomes a natural extension of good behavior rather than a separate or artificial activity.
This section also helps learners practice key vocabulary, such as marketing, brand, message, and audience, because hearing these words used repeatedly in different sentences helps you understand how they work together. And over time, you begin to recognize how small changes in wording can change the meaning or feeling of a message.
Avoiding promises of fast growth is very important, because exaggerated claims often create disappointment, while realistic communication builds credibility, and businesses that explain limitations as well as strengths appear more trustworthy, which is why responsible marketing focuses on setting clear expectations instead of creating excitement that cannot be maintained.
For English learners, listening to this kind of discussion trains you to recognize tone and intention, because you are not only hearing what is said, but also how it is said. And this skill is extremely useful in real life, where understanding meaning often depends on context and attitude rather than just words.
So the main idea of this section is that marketing in a digital world is really about communication with purpose, where clarity builds trust, honesty supports long-term brand value, and respectful language creates strong connections, which benefits both businesses and learners who want to understand how modern English is used in professional and realistic situations. When we talk about managing money in a business, it is very important to understand that financial awareness is not about making promises of fast profit or guaranteeing income, but instead it is about observing carefully how money moves in and out of the business, knowing the cost of each activity, tracking expenses, and planning income realistically, because without awareness, even a small business with a great idea can face unnecessary stress or fail to grow steadily. And this principle applies to every entrepreneur, no matter where they are in the world.
Many learners feel fear when they hear words like budget, cost, or income, because it seems complicated or stressful. But in simple language, managing money is like keeping track of your personal wallet or allowance, which means you know how much you have, how much you need to spend, and how much you hope to save. And when these ideas are applied slowly and carefully to business, they allow the owner to plan patiently, avoid mistakes, and make more confident decisions without relying on luck or guesswork.
Budgeting is one of the most important tools in responsible business management because it helps organize resources and prioritize spending. And by setting limits for costs, monitoring income, and planning small steps rather than expecting immediate profit, a business can survive challenges and maintain stability, which is a more realistic approach in 2026, where sudden changes in markets, customer behavior, and technology can easily affect small businesses if they are not prepared to manage money carefully.
To make this idea even easier for learners, we can think of budgeting as a daily plan for money, where each expense is considered carefully, and you ask yourself questions like, what do I really need? What can wait? And what brings the most value? Because this simple habit reduces unnecessary spending, increases awareness of costs, and helps owners focus on actions that actually support growth and learning rather than risky or impulsive decisions.
Patience is also a key principle because financial success rarely happens overnight, and beginners often feel pressure to see results immediately. But in reality, careful planning, consistent monitoring of expenses, and gradual increase of income over time are far more effective for building a sustainable business. And this slow, steady approach also reduces stress and helps owners make rational decisions rather than reacting emotionally to every small financial change.
Many learners worry that thinking carefully about money is boring or difficult. But in fact, this process trains both business sense and English skills at the same time, because listening to sentences about budgeting, costs, and planning helps learners understand how numbers are described in spoken English, how ideas are connected logically, and how practical problems can be solved with calm, clear language that is easy to follow.
Another important point is that managing money carefully does not mean avoiding all risk, because every business activity involves some uncertainty. But it does mean understanding the limits of what you can afford, estimating costs realistically, and avoiding assumptions about guaranteed income, because responsible financial awareness allows entrepreneurs to take calculated steps while staying prepared for unexpected changes, which is especially important in a global market where conditions shift quickly.
This is why restating ideas with clarity is so helpful for learners, because sentences about money often include vocabulary like budget, cost, income, and planning. And when these words are used in long descriptive sentences, learners can hear how English naturally connects ideas, shows cause and effect, and explains practical concepts step by step, which improves both comprehension and confidence in using numbers in language.
Practical explanations also help avoid confusion about financial planning, because instead of abstract charts or technical formulas, learners can hear realistic examples of tracking income, comparing costs, and setting small financial goals, and when these examples are repeated with careful explanation, they show that money management is a skill that grows with practice and attention, rather than something that appears instantly with experience or luck.
Finally, it is important to remember that careful money management builds not only stability in business, but also confidence in decision-making. Because when an owner understands their budget, costs, and income clearly, they can make choices with less stress, communicate plans more effectively, and focus on actions that actually improve the business while continuing to learn English through practical, realistic discussions that connect numbers with words in a meaningful way.
So, in summary, managing money carefully and realistically is about awareness, planning, and patience, where small steps, clear observation, and responsible budgeting allow a business to survive challenges and grow steadily, while also giving English learners a rich opportunity to practice listening to descriptive explanations, understand vocabulary related to finance, and connect language with practical life skills in a calm and educational way.
And as we continue, remember that no financial promises are necessary, because understanding your money, thinking ahead and planning carefully will create a strong foundation for both business success and English learning, showing that responsible behavior and calm observation are more powerful than quick assumptions, instant profits, or risky shortcuts, which makes this principle essential for beginners and advanced learners alike.
When we discuss common mistakes that new business owners make, it is very important to emphasize that mistakes are not signs of failure, but rather natural experiences that provide opportunities for learning, reflection, and growth. Because every entrepreneur, regardless of skill or background, encounters errors when testing ideas, making decisions, or communicating with customers, and understanding these mistakes calmly and objectively helps new owners improve their strategies while maintaining confidence instead of feeling discouraged or afraid of taking action.
Many learners may feel anxious when hearing the word mistake because it often feels negative. But in simple English, a mistake is simply an experience that teaches something new. And when we share our experiences and reflect on them, we begin to notice patterns, understand why decisions did not work as expected, and slowly develop better habits, which shows that mistakes are essential for learning both in business and in life. And listening to these examples also helps learners practice past tense storytelling naturally.
One common mistake in new businesses is allowing emotions to drive decisions, such as panic, excitement, or fear, rather than relying on logical thinking, because emotional decisions can lead to unnecessary spending, overpromising, or reacting too quickly to minor challenges, while logical thinking encourages careful observation, comparison of facts, and step-by-step planning. And when new owners pause to reflect before acting, they reduce risk and create stronger foundations for consistent progress.
To put this idea into simple daily language, we can think of emotional decisions like rushing into buying something without checking the price, while logical decisions are like comparing costs, asking questions, and considering whether the purchase fits a plan. And this metaphor helps learners connect abstract business ideas with experiences they already understand, which strengthens both comprehension and vocabulary.
Another common mistake is impatience, because beginners often expect quick results, immediate profit, or fast recognition. But in reality, business growth takes time, consistent effort, and careful adjustment. And when entrepreneurs accept that improvement happens gradually, they are able to continue learning, experimenting safely, and refining strategies without unnecessary stress, which is a mindset that supports both business success and personal development over the long term.
Many learners feel discouraged when growth seems slow, but it is helpful to remember that small steps and repeated practice lead to stronger results than sudden actions driven by hope or pressure. And understanding this idea also reinforces the importance of patience in learning English, because complex skills like language develop through continuous practice rather than overnight success, showing a parallel between business growth and learning habits.
Mistakes also provide essential feedback, because every error contains information about what works, what does not work, and what can be improved. And when new business owners analyze their mistakes objectively, they transform them into practical lessons, which teaches them to refine communication, improve customer understanding, and adjust strategies, while also building confidence and resilience rather than fear or self-doubt.
From a language learning perspective, this section helps learners practice reflective listening, because we are describing experiences, reasons, and improvements in long sentences that connect past actions with future lessons, which improves comprehension of cause and effect, conditional thinking, and descriptive storytelling in English, all of which are essential skills for both professional and academic contexts.
It is also important to normalize mistakes by understanding that even highly successful entrepreneurs have experienced failures, misjudgments, and setbacks at multiple points in their careers, which shows that errors are part of the natural process, and when beginners accept this reality, they are less likely to feel shame, hesitation, or fear, and more likely to experiment responsibly, make better decisions, and develop a growth mindset that focuses on learning instead of punishment.
In simple terms, we can think of mistakes as signposts rather than obstacles, because they point out areas that need improvement, highlight gaps in understanding, and create opportunities to try again with new knowledge. And when learners view experiences in this way, they are practicing reflection, emotional awareness, and strategic thinking, which are valuable not only in business, but in everyday life and language learning.
Another mistake to avoid is ignoring feedback from customers, employees, or colleagues, because feedback provides real information about strengths and weaknesses, and new owners who dismiss it often repeat the same errors, while those who listen carefully can adjust processes, improve products or services, and strengthen trust and relationships over time, which again emphasizes that mistakes are not final, but transformative when combined with observation and patience.
For English learners, it is also helpful to notice how reflective sentences are structured, because we are connecting past experiences with current understanding and future improvement, and vocabulary, like mistake, experience, improvement, and patience, is repeated in different contexts, which strengthens comprehension, reinforces word meaning, and models how reflective language is used naturally in long, complex explanations.
Finally, embracing mistakes with a calm, objective mindset allows business owners to reduce stress, think more clearly, and develop stronger strategies, because learning from errors encourages reflection, experimentation, and responsible decision-making, which creates a cycle of growth that is far more valuable than avoiding mistakes entirely. And this approach is particularly beneficial for beginners who want to combine business understanding with English learning at the same time.
So in conclusion, mistakes are natural, necessary, and valuable. And by observing them, reflecting on them, and acting with patience, learners and entrepreneurs alike can improve continuously, develop resilience, and strengthen their skills in both business and English, which ultimately shows that errors are not something to fear, but powerful tools for improvement, understanding, and confident communication in the modern world.
As we reach the final part of today's podcast, it is important to calmly review everything we have discussed so far, step by step, so that listeners can clearly understand the process of starting a successful business in 2026. Because when complex information is summarized logically, it becomes easier to remember, practice, and apply, and we want everyone to leave with a realistic sense of what it takes to succeed, emphasizing learning, patience, and careful planning over quick results or unrealistic expectations, which is exactly the mindset that supports long-term growth.
Yes, Adam. And for English learners, this final section is also very useful because it shows how to summarize information in long, clear sentences, and it reinforces vocabulary naturally, such as business, idea, plan, market, research, budget, strategy, communication, technology, trust, ethical, mistake, improvement, and patience, which are words we have repeated throughout the podcast in different sentences, helping learners internalize their meanings while connecting them with real-life concepts.
To recap, the first step we discussed was choosing the right business idea, focusing on solving real problems, matching personal skills, and considering market relevance without blindly copying trends. And this step sets the foundation because selecting an idea carefully reduces the risk of mistakes and provides a clear direction for all future decisions, which is essential for both business planning and understanding English concepts in context.
Then we explored market research, where we emphasized observing, listening, and learning about potential customers in simple and ethical ways, without relying on expensive tools or manipulative tactics. And from an English learning perspective, this step provided useful vocabulary such as research, audience, behavior, and feedback, while also allowing listeners to practice longer sentences with cause and effect language and detailed explanations.
Next, we discussed building a business plan that actually works, stressing flexibility, realistic goals, and step-by-step guidance rather than perfect predictions. And we explained that a business plan is a tool to guide your decisions, reduce stress, and improve organization, which demonstrates how logical sequencing, clear reasoning, and structured communication are useful not only in business, but also in developing advanced English listening and comprehension skills.
After that, we focused on legal, ethical, and responsible business practices, highlighting the importance of following general principles, respecting customers and communities, and maintaining trust while avoiding any country-specific advice. And this section helped learners notice how abstract concepts such as responsibility, ethics, and trust can be explained in long formal sentences that are calm, clear, and understandable for English learners.
We also talked about technology and AI in businesses, reminding listeners that tools should support humans rather than replace them, and that efficiency and learning are more important than unrealistic automation promises, which is critical advice for 2026 and for English learners. This section reinforced vocabulary such as technology, tools, automation, and efficiency, while training listeners to follow complex cause and effect sentences in long-form explanations.
Then we explored marketing and communication, emphasizing honesty, clarity, and long-term brand thinking, showing how clear messaging builds trust with customers without relying on exaggerated claims. And this provided a great opportunity for learners to recognize tone, intention, and descriptive sentence structures, which are essential skills for both professional communication and English learning, especially in understanding nuanced language in real-world contexts.
Following that, we covered money management, stressing awareness, budgeting, realistic planning, and patience, without giving any financial guarantees, because financial understanding is about observation and careful decision-making rather than quick profit. And this section also allowed learners to practice numbers in spoken English, descriptive explanations, and practical reasoning, reinforcing the connection between language skills and real-world business decisions.
Next, we focused on common mistakes new business owners make, highlighting the importance of learning from errors, avoiding emotional decisions, and practicing patience. And we normalized mistakes as natural experiences that support growth, which was excellent for reflective listening practice, past tense storytelling, and vocabulary reinforcement, helping learners internalize words like mistake, improvement, experience, and patience, while understanding that growth comes gradually through observation and learning.
As we have seen, the entire process of starting a business in 2026, from choosing an idea, conducting research, creating a plan, practicing ethical principles, responsibly using technology, communicating clearly, managing money, and learning from mistakes, is built around realistic, step-by-step action, careful reflection, and consistent improvement, which mirrors the process of learning English, where patience, repetition, and reflection lead to stronger skills over time.
Finally, we want to motivate all our listeners to continue practicing, because listening to long-form explanations, reflecting on vocabulary, and understanding clear cause and effect reasoning will improve your confidence in English and prepare you for real-life situations, whether in business, study, or daily communication. And remembering key words like strategy, trust, market, plan, research, budget, communication, technology, ethical, improvement, mistake, patience, audience, and value will help you express complex ideas naturally.
So as we conclude, remember that success in business is about consistent learning, responsible planning, and careful observation, not instant results. And the same principle applies to English learning, where steady listening, reflection, and vocabulary practice allow you to grow confidently, understand abstract concepts, and communicate ideas effectively in long-form, professional, and structured sentences that are essential for both education and real-world interaction.
And we encourage you to keep practicing, keep reflecting, and keep applying what you have learned. Because every time you listen, you strengthen your understanding of English and your grasp of business principles, which together create a foundation for lifelong growth, showing that patience, awareness, and practice are more powerful than shortcuts, and that thoughtful action in any field, business or language, is the key to long-term success and confidence.